Hey everyone, I'm back at Crit City today. I thought I'd try and do a little live Crit City, well, I'd say masterclass. We might have to see what the result is first, because it could be the opposite. So we've got 8 laps of the Bell Lap today. What attracted me to this race was the big field actually, 46, 45 races so far in B. That's going to make it pretty interesting. I haven't warmed up properly at all. This is the highest wattage I've done all day. This first couple of laps might hurt a little bit. Let's click up now. Out of the saddle as the timer ticks down. Up around that 400 watt mark and just watch. See what the other riders are doing. Always one or two that go really hard. I just want to see what the majority of the pack. I think with a field this big, going to see some attrition. Through here, lap one up the rollers. So try and avoid being on the wrong side of that. You'll see on the mini map, things are stretching out already. It's no surprise. But we're still kind of bunched. I'll keep surging up these rises. Not fussed about the two off the front. We'll wheel them in. Just want to stay with the majority. This nice big bunch. Get a nice draft in the second half of the lap. That was a nice start. Heart rate up a bit, of course, but not to a point where I'm worried. You do have to watch here. The acceleration as we go downhill. You can really stretch things. Little gaps become big gaps. We can see a few little openings there. Not big enough to worry me. Just gotta watch. Keep the power on. Find the draft. Just scooch up on this peloton. Get into a rhythm. Coming up now. Lap 1. Graham, 26th, 27th. I doubt we'll see anyone behind me again. We've had that big first selection right there in that first lap, 45 down to 27. I'm going to have to move up a bit here, because it will stretch through these little bumps. I'm quite a ways back. We're also going to see a lot of power-ups flying. And a wave of burritos, which is interesting. Going to be dropping people out of the draft, especially when you see them together like that. I think it's actually worked in my favour though, because I cut the draft for so many of the peloton that I was able to catch back up. Actually wasn't as hard as I thought. Moving up through the field. Good position coming up this climb. The steamrollers are not much use to me. Only has some effect on the cobbles. I will use it there. Just for whatever marginal gains I can get. A little bit extra recovery maybe. Without stretching down here again. Do have to bridge this with a bit of help. My group of 6 here. We're safely back on. You can see our first 2 green cones. This is the anti-sandbagging measures in place for Crit City races. So if you go over the wattage limits for your grade and they're not publicised, I couldn't tell you exactly what 1 minute or 3 minute or 4 minute power has triggered that for those riders. There's some science in the background to suggest they should be up in A. I know we had a couple of sign-ups who were actually A graders on Zwift Power. Another steamroller. Obviously not my day. For power-ups, we've got a few laps to go. We're in a much better position this lap. On the back of the fattest part of the peloton. So I don't have to do anything too crazy through here. Watch for any move that might stretch the bunch and accelerate it. It looks like we're all keeping our matches dry at the moment. Looking at my heart rate, this is a much more conservative start to yesterday's race where I was up around this little 165 mark, but the whole time I was never in the 150s, which is a really good endurance zone for me. There's definitely nudging threshold like I am now. First feels good. Haven't done any matches. Haven't had to shift up gears and really push hard on the pedals. Been able to spin and sit in. Not only a short race, I do have a carbohydrate drink with me. Just that quick sugar hit. When you are up around that threshold intensity, you are going to be predominantly burning carbs. It's probably not going to really impact my performance one way or the other on a race as short as this, like 15-20 minutes. It will certainly impact my recovery if I don't replace that carbohydrate. So may as well consume it on the bike. Make sure that that petrol tank's staying as full as possible. Some nice quick burning fuel for when I need it. So see I had a little gap there, but just a matter of experience, I suppose. That wasn't enough for me to panic or to feel like I had to really surge. I was able to just up my tempo slightly, back on. And now we have a Ghost, which again I won't be using. Ghost is fun in a small field where you can be a bit more tactical. But realistically, that 10-second invisibility, I'm not going to get a gap on 20 riders that's going to stick. Maybe if I spun it up as, the last lap was the only thing I had, then maybe I go for a 25-second sprint to win it instead of 15 and be invisible those first 15 or first 10. But right now, I'm just going to burn it up. I don't have any strategic use for that right now because I'm not attacking and it really doesn't have a great defensive capability. It's not going to help me stay on, minimize my watts through these first few laps. You can see the arrow at the back here. Obviously a rider got further back than they thought. They've used that as a defensive power up, help bridge the gap. And me seeing that, also being off the back, clear sign to me they want to bridge. That's a great wheel. You know, they've signalled their intention to do the work, so just sit in. Let them drag you up like that, like that racer did just then. Coming up on halfway now. You can see the intensity has lifted a bit. The heart rate is higher. Still around threshold, which is fine. Given we've got 10 minutes to go, I know that's not going to be too damaging. I'll just look for opportunities to recover when I can. Obviously, the lower I can get it, the better. But no cause for alarm at that 165-ish. Starting to hop across my fingers for an aero power up here, which I want to save for the end. Definitely using that as an offensive weapon. And there we go. Asking you shall receive. So we saw that last lap being used as a defensive power up, helping to bridge to the peloton. That would be an absolute last resort for me. This group's not pushing hard enough to make me think I'm not going to be able to latch back on if I do get gapped slightly. And aero absolutely makes a difference between winning and losing. And I want to win today. So there's really, 4 laps to go. There's no other good outcome here. I can spin up a draft, which saves me a few watts. As I said, I'm not too worried about the intensity impacting my sprint at this stage. The steamroller and the ghost are of limited use for the strategy I'm employing today of just sitting in and minimizing effort. And the feather, might help you stick on those little rollers, but again, it's more with this strategy, it's a defensive power up. Whereas my goal here is to win the race. I'd rather get dropped than to make it to the end without my best chance of winning. So, I'm going to hold on. So it looks like we have had some attrition. Those green cones. And the speed obviously a little too hot for some, or they just got too far back. Once you drop out of that 5 meters and out of the draft, you really got to go. Pay a little now in effort and pain, or a lot later in getting dropped, or having to put in a really huge effort, potentially a race-ending effort, just to latch back on. 3 laps to go after this. You're not going to have much time to recover from something like that. So if you do find yourself off the back, spend that petrol early, like I'm doing here. Just stay in that draft zone, or get straight back into it. Don't let that gap stretch, because it's never going to get better. That situation only gets worse unless you make the call to push. So we've got another bunch of burritos through here. It's going to make my life a bit tricky. 2 at the back, cancelling out the draft. But again, pretty moderate tempo here. If the front had really decided to push that lap, and I was stuck with no draft, I could have easily found myself way further back. But it looks like everyone's pretty content here to sit in, wait to play their final card. Whether it's a long one from sort of 500-600 meters out, or wait for that stretch, this final 300. So for me, with my power curve, best approach is to sit in the wheels, from about a minute to go. It's about a K out. Just follow. Watch really closely and just follow the moves. Stay with the front of the race. Keep that front rider within a bike length or two. I know that's going to put me in a position at that 250 to go, which is my ideal launch point. I know I can hold, strong wattage all the way to the line. It's no good if you're punchier than that. You're relying on a 5-10 second effort that's going to taper off. If you go at 250, 50 or 300, you're really risking, the rest of the field coming over the top. So you're better off waiting for something like 150. For me, I know that from that 250 mark on a flat course like this, I can accelerate away from the pack, open up the gap, force the chasers to, eat a bit of wind and work that bit harder to get back on my wheel. And if I get it right, that's usually enough to get me to the line, depending on who shows up, of course. So I did scopes with power before the race. At the time, I had the best raw wattage in the sprint, but a few had some pretty impressive power to weight numbers. I think on this sprint, the raw wattage is going to win out, but it's going to be tight, with guys that can hold 12 plus watts per kilo in B grade. I'm expecting this to be pretty close. It's going to come down to that decision making and positioning in that last lap, particularly that last 30 to 60 seconds, which I'll try to talk you through. But obviously the breathing rate's going to go up a little bit as we get to the finish there. So again, that heart rate edging higher, just reflecting the sustained nature of the effort here. Haven't really had a lot of time to sit and spin, and the pace has stayed pretty consistent and consistently high through the flat bits of the course. Haven't helped my own course at times, probably drifting a little far back, having to accelerate when I should be recovering. But overall, not too much damage, feeling fairly fresh. Fresh given the circumstances, of course. As fresh as you can feel at your threshold heart rate. And after 2 days of racing before this. One thing you can't see is I'm really not spending a lot of time looking at the front of this group. It's too hard to tell what's really happening up there. I can't see the power numbers in the rider list. So I'm using the riders around me, particularly the ones around the middle of the pack, and also the shape of this pack. Tell me what's happening. So right now, with 3, 4, 5 riders across, just in a blob, that tells me speed is consistent. Either a couple of riders leading out, holding the front, or just a gentle churn with no one really accelerating. We'll see through the rollers. That'll narrow down to 1, 2, or 3 wide. That's when you know there's an acceleration. So last lap here, we'll see whether anyone wants to try and hurt the rest of the field through here. I do get the impression that there's just too many. There's no confidence in the group that they can go solo. And, crit, a random crit at midday Australian time. Unlikely to see any coordinated team tactics today, so assuming it's a every man for himself situation here. I'm just going to start to move up a bit. I don't want to be chasing a gap down the hill. Really trying to keep this effort as smooth as I can. Again, just saving the legs. Push when you have to, and not before. This is good. On my 6 wheels from the front. I'm going to have to stay on it. And if I ease off at this point, I will drift back. Do that work again. So I'm making the call just to stay 20 watts higher than I might be otherwise. I'm really watching now. This is sort of the range for a long attack. Just kicked up a gear, cadence down, really giving me that ability to push a lot of force through the pedals when the need to accelerate comes. There's some movement here, approaching my 250, up another gear, moving forward, now go. Woo! That's how it is done. Lucky that the recording went to plan. You can see in that watts category column there, 3.7 for me, and everyone's higher, 3.8 up to even 4.4. So it's sort of no surprise that I got to that sprint a little bit fresher than the rest of the field. Had that kick, and it was close. And you see Gripper in second. Same thing, 3.8, 154 heart rate. So he's raced really efficiently, had something to give at the end, put in a really good effort the last 15 seconds. Oh, well, I'm happy. My legs are tired. Still trying to get my breathing under control here. But yeah, there you go. That is how to race, an efficient sit sprint. Well up, crit. I'll see you next time.